Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, the main character from Charles Dickens' novella, A Christmas Carol. Well, on this channel, I've already discussed how he is presented in staves 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the story. And so I guess it probably makes sense for me to discuss how he is presented in stave 5, you know, the fifth and final part of the story. Well then, just how is Ebenezer Scrooge presented in stave 5 of A Christmas Carol? Let's find out. How are you doing, Revision Squad? It is me, Liam, aka Mr. Knight, aka DystopiaJunkie, and in this video we are going to think about the character Ebenezer Scrooge and how he is presented in stave 5 of A Christmas Carol. Now, with stave 5 being the final part of the story, it should come as no surprise to you that this is my final piece of in-depth analysis that focuses exclusively on Scrooge. I really hope that my choice to cover his character's presentation in each stave means that you feel like your notes on Scrooge are detailed and nuanced, and that they will really help you with your studies. As per usual, I strongly recommend that you make sure you've got a pen and some paper to hand so that you may make notes of the things I discuss over the course of this video. And if you do find it to be helpful, please do consider showing your support by liking, commenting, subscribing and sharing. All of that lovely stuff. I know that generic YouTuber beg is pretty cringeworthy of me, but your support really does help me out so much more than you know. As I've said before, it is always worth having a quick think about who Scrooge is. Now, there are loads of different ways that you can do that. You can think of him as a character, so as a made-up person. You can think of his role within the story, or you can think of him as a symbol, metaphor, or representation for something or someone else. Now, the ideas that are on screen at the moment are ideas that I have already discussed in quite some detail in my analysis of Scrooge in stave 1. Now, rather than just repeat myself over and over and over and over again, I recommend that you check that video out after you've watched this one, if you haven't already done so. Anyway, I know you're after some quotations, so get ready, because here they come. Although, before we actually get stuck into analysing some quotations, there's just one thing that I want to say first. And that is that in stave 5, Scrooge is transformed. The reason why I say this now is that much of the following analysis will relate to this idea in some way. However, I'm not just going to sit here and say Scrooge is transformed and leave it at that, because Scrooge's transformation is evident through a number of things. There is not one single quality to Scrooge that changes, but many, some of which we're going to have a think about now. Alright, before we get started looking at those quotations, I just want to give you a quick reminder that all the page numbers I reference are for this copy of the book. And so the page numbers, they might be different if you're using a different edition of the story. So, our first batch of quotations come right at the beginning of stave 5. Let's look at Scrooge's dialogue. I will live in the past, present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. O Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees. Here, I think Scrooge is being presented as overjoyed. Not only because he is no longer in that bleak future from stave 4, but because he recognises that he has been given an opportunity to change his ways. Scrooge's joy is most evident, I argue, in Dickens's use of punctuation. The frequent exclamation marks suggest that Scrooge is expressing intense emotions during his dialogue, and by situating this consideration within the actual content of his dialogue, we see that Scrooge is extremely happy, rather than angry or scared, for instance, because of his use of the verb praised. Another quotation in which we see Scrooge's joy is when he says he is as light as a feather, as happy as an angel, and as merry as a schoolboy. Light, happy and merry all have connotations of joy, and the referent in each simile in this quotation, so the things that Scrooge compares himself to, so the feather, angel and schoolboy, are all extreme examples of the qualities that Scrooge expresses. Feathers are super light, angels are super happy, and schoolboys, apparently, are super merry. Now, if you want to think about where Scrooge is shown to be completely unjoyful earlier in the story, you should consider his "Bah! Humbug!" catchphrase, or the fact that he eats alone, or even just how rude he is to Fred at the start of Stave 1. The next significant change in Scrooge can be seen just moments later in Stave 5. In his conversation with the boy he sees on the street, Scrooge says, "The prize turkey, the big one. Go and buy it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown." There are multiple aspects of this quotation that present Scrooge as now being generous. For instance, in telling the boy to buy the prize turkey, which we know Scrooge plans on giving to the Cratchits, he is presented as being generous not only because he is donating food to those less fortunate than he is, but because he is giving them the absolute best food he can, which is revealed by the adjective prize, which means best, outstanding, the most expensive, and so on in this context. Furthermore, Scrooge's generosity is shown because he is offering to pay the boy to complete this errand for him. The repetition of "I'll give you" shows just how readily Scrooge will now part with his money, because he is in fact volunteering to give money to the boy. In offering to pay him a shilling, Scrooge is offering to pay the boy an amount roughly equal to what a poor child might earn for 1 day's wages, whereas the half crown is equal to 2.5 times this amount. Scrooge's newfound monetary generosity is seen elsewhere in Stave 5, such as when he offers to donate to charity a sum which includes "a great many back payments," with the two adjectives great and many compounding to suggest that Scrooge is offering to donate a vast sum of money. Now, if you want to think about where Scrooge is shown to not be generous earlier in the story, why not think about how he dealt with the charity representatives in Stave 1, or how he considered paying Bob Cratchit on his day off as "picking a man's pocket." How else is Scrooge different in Stave 5? Well, let's have a look at the following quotation, which says, "The chuckle, and the chuckle, and the chuckle, and the chuckle, by the chuckle, and chuckled till he cried." Blimey, you'd have thought that Dickens would have had access to a thesaurus, right? In the space of one paragraph, which actually spans only one sentence, he repeats a form of the verb chuckle 6 times. For a bit of context, chuckle is used to describe how Scrooge speaks with the boy we were just talking about a moment earlier, how he pays for the turkey, the cab the boy takes to deliver it to the Cratchits and the boy for his time, and how he feels after this. Chuckle, I reckon, shows Scrooge to be quite light-hearted and easy-going and seemingly quite pleased with life, especially given how much it is repeated. Perhaps it even suggests that Scrooge is having fun, almost like this act of giving is a game to him. Now, this light-hearted, non-serious, fun-having Scrooge is seen later on in Stave 5. For instance, when he turns up to Fred's on Christmas Day, Scrooge takes part in "wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness," which I think displays him having fun, not being serious, and just generally enjoying himself, especially given the repetition of "wonderful." Again, if you want to think about where the opposite is shown in the story, look back to Stave 1 and at how Scrooge responds to Fred's invitation to his Christmas celebrations, or how he is just generally serious and gruff, seen in loads of places, including, of course, "Bah! Humbug!
Our next couple of quotations come from the second half of Stave 5.
To start with, let's consider the following quotation. "Now I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. Now this is Scrooge addressing Bob Cratchit as he sort of pranks him on Boxing Day. The fact that he tries to prank him at all could show Scrooge to be light-hearted and unserious again, but I instead want to focus on Scrooge's vocabulary choices in his dialogue. In addressing Bob, he calls him "my friend," using a term that is loaded with warmth, familiarity, and fondness. This is definitely not how Scrooge treated Bob earlier in the story, in which he treated him with general disdain. And so this change suggests that Scrooge is now much more caring and has started to open his heart towards others. He is kinder, more personable, and more friendly. Now this idea is glimpsed elsewhere in Stave 5. For instance, when Scrooge attends Fred's Christmas celebrations, he was at home in 5 minutes. Now, this isn't being used in a literal sense. Scrooge doesn't leave and go back to his house within only 5 minutes of being at the party. Instead, the expression "at home" is being used in the colloquial sense to describe how comfortable Scrooge is at Fred's, which I think is indicative of him letting his guard down and opening his heart to his nephew and niece. At the very least, I believe that these two quotations show that Scrooge's relationships have improved after the spirits visited him. I mean, contrast these quotations with Scrooge's presentation in the opening stave. Do they show a bloke who is cold and solitary as an oyster? I don't think so. And for our last batch of quotations, let's look at the end of the story. First up, we have the following. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew. In describing Scrooge as a second father, or a good friend, good man, and good master, we see once and for all that Scrooge's transformation is not only complete, but it is permanent. This secures the positive presentation of him found throughout the final stave, and ends the story on a positive note. The use of the adverb infinitely in infinitely more suggests that Scrooge's miserliness has been inverted, and perhaps now he is incredibly generous and caring and kind. Of course, this idea is reinforced elsewhere, as when the narration states that it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, the adverb always similarly suggests that Scrooge remains transformed, perhaps so radically that people forgot of his former miserliness, because in saying that he knew how to keep Christmas well, and therefore that he demonstrates the kindness and generosity of the Christmas spirit, it seems that people now overlook how he used to be. So Scrooge, mate, it took the hauntings of your former colleague, the visitations of 3 spirits, a reminder of your past, seeing how people view you in the present, and a glimpse into a bleak future. But we got there in the end, didn't we? You learned your lesson, changed your ways, and became an infinitely better bloke. Well done. So that is us almost over. Just a quick summary and then an optional task for you to tackle, so don't close the video just yet. So if we were going to summarise Scrooge in Stave 5, we might say Scrooge's transformation is complete in Stave 5. He is joyous, generous with his money, time, heart and company, and improves his relationships with his family and newfound friends. Not only is he changed, but he is changed permanently, suggesting that true redemption is possible for everyone, even someone as miserly and cold as Scrooge once was. As I've said before, I always think it is useful to have a summary written down somewhere. It will help to jog your memory when you get around to revising, could act as a good introduction to an essay, and might also prompt several paragraphs if you think about those key words, Scrooge as joyous, generous, and redeemed. And now here's that quick question for you. Scrooge is transformed quite radically by the end of A Christmas Carol, and it is clear that his transformation is permanent. Does his new attitude fully redeem him for his past actions? Does it fall short of totally redeeming him? Or is his new attitude even a bit excessive or, a bit over the top? Of those three, which do you think and why? Now, based on this question, you could create a mind map that reflects on Scrooge's redemption. You could use it as a discussion question if you're revising with your friends. And you could definitely use it to write a quick analytical paragraph down in the comment section too. I absolutely love seeing your ideas, and I think it is always interesting to see what your opinions are. So why not pause the video and give it a go? I'm also usually pretty good at responding to comments too, so you'll even get some feedback from me. Okay then, that is my analysis of Scrooge in Stave 5 of A Christmas Carol complete, and therefore that is my stave by stave examination of him over too. Genuinely, I hope this video has helped you out, whether that's because you are revising for exams, studying A Christmas Carol for the first time, or just have a passing interest in Charles Dickens's writing. If you have found this video to be interesting or useful, please do show your support by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and so on. I know it's cringy for me to repeat those things again, but genuinely, they really do help me out so much more than you know. And it also helps with the YouTube algorithm stuff and means that my videos will be seen by more people, which really is the aim of the game. I just want to help people out here. Anyway, as ever, I hope that you have an awesome rest of the day. If you are revising, please do remember to take frequent short breaks, as a burned out student is not a happy or successful student, which is what I think you deserve to be. So, just how is Ebenezer Scrooge presented in Stave 5 of A Christmas Carol? Well, if I was going to sum it up in one word, I would say that he is presented as being transformed. He really did get there in the end. Well done, Scrooge.